Hello listeners, this is Steve from MakCorp Data Resources, and we provide data, analytics, comparisons, trends and reports for all the ASX Resource sector. And this podcast will be focused on the performance of the ASX Resource sector for the week ending the 6th of December 2024. And in this podcast we'll cover the market data performance, which includes the whole ASX Resource sector, the top 3 and bottom 3 best and worst performing stocks for the week, commodities and also regions, which you can see some of this on the screen currently. We'll also cover directors, buys and sells, new appointments and resignations, capital raising, projects. So let's start with the whole sector and the average weekly gain, so a positive 0.53% average weekly gain for each stock for the week ending 6th of December 2024. So a positive week for the sector. We move across and we look at some of the best performing regions or project regions for the sector. That includes New England, which is in New South Wales, had a great week with a 4.04% average weekly gain. The second best was the Murchison district region in Western Australia and had a weekly average gain of 2.36 average weekly gain. And 2 of our clients are in the region, including WA8, Warradar Resources, and ACT Octava Minerals, and both are gold and antimony focused company and projects. So quite a positive week, as you can see, across the board. We'll move on and look at the commodities. So we'll click on here. We see the best performing commodity for the week is germanium, and second best was niobium. Manganese third best. With germanium, it had an average weekly gain of 17.04%. The other one I'll mention is gallium, which had an average weekly gain of 7.03% weekly average gain. And those 2 commodities performed extremely well based on the release of China's news during the week, with the ban of export on those 2 commodities. Antimony is another one that's also on the banned list as well of export. So that's a positive performance for the commodities for the week. And let's look at the top 3 and bottom 3 best and worst performing stocks for the week. ARN was the number 1 best performing stock with 161.36% gain for the week. And that was based on some drilling results on niobium. Also M4M with a gain of 150%, again based on drilling. And MTM, which is they've created a technology process called Flash Jewel, and they also had a positive week, which had a gain of 119.51%. Looking at the 3 worst performing stocks for the week was IDA, had a minus 42.73% loss for the week on no news. WEC had a minus 41.67% loss, again on no news. And LOM had a negative loss of minus 38.10%. Capital raise was done during the week. So moving on now, we discussed the commodities and regions. So we'll move on to the director shares. Before we move on to there, I just wanted to touch on how we see trends happening in the MakCorp data. So if we look at gallium, which we've already touched on, we can see here with the graph over the last 12 weeks, in the last 3 weeks, it's having a trend up and the volume's also increasing as well. Now there are 11 stocks focused on gallium in a project. You'll only see 7 here because all our data is for ASX Resource stocks with a share price of 1 cent or higher. So that's 0.10 cent or higher. So the other ones are obviously less than a cent. And we'll see that number grow as we did with antimony. Antimony had approximately the same number of stocks focused on it with projects. And over the 3 months now, there's over 40 companies now focused on antimony. So it'll be interesting to see the growth of how many companies over the next 4 to 12 weeks get involved with gallium. And looking at the project regions, if we look at the Murchison, again, we're looking at the whole last 12 weeks of the weekly average gain or loss. But here, as we look at the last 3 to 4 weeks, it's on its way up. And it was mentioned earlier, this week it had a average percentage weekly gain of 2.36%. Now, if you're looking at this report on a weekly basis, some of the history may change, and the reason that will change is either companies get delisted or there's new companies added to the region because they've got an acquisition in the region, or their share prices either gained 1 cent or higher or dropped below 1 cent. So there can be reasons why, the last 12 weeks we can see changes on a week-to-week basis. We can see also in the last 12 weeks, the week ending date, we're looking at the Murchison region, the average weekly gain loss percentage, total volume, average volume, the number of stocks that traded 1 cent or higher in the week, how many in the green, how many with no gain, and how many in a loss or in the red. And this is the one I look at as far as volume. This is the average percentage volume based on the number of shares on issue for the company. So again, you can see that's on the rise in the last 3 weeks. So we've covered the market data. Next, we'll look at the directors' shares or transactions. And there was 401 transactions for the week, with 32 buyers on market or participating in a share placement. And there was 5.8 million plus transacted on market with 32 ASX Resource companies. There's some expiry of options and performance rights. There's been some consolidated splits, conversions of options or performance rights into fully paid shares. But the big one was down here, 200 transactions with issue. And that can be issue of performance shares or issue of options to directors. So I haven't quite seen that 200 number prior. So that's a huge number for the week. So that's the directors' transactions. When you have full access to MakCorp, you can see the individual buys and sells by director by the ASX Resource company. And as far as new appointments and resignations for directors, there were 36 new appointments and 37 resignations for the week. So now we'll move on to projects. So I'll just click on the projects here. And we're filtered on just for the week ending the 6th of December. There are 144 ASX code with project updates, which there were 155 project updates. We can scroll down, we can see the commodities involved. We've got 2 commodity fields, one by priority commodity, and you can scroll over and see the number of project updates per priority commodity, and also by product or by commodity. Again, we can see the project stages they're at, majority are exploration, few acquisitions, discovery continues to have work done on discoveries, projects in production and studies, etc. A couple of projects were also sold in the week. But what we're going to look at is the drilling result. So I can look at project activity, and I just want to look at drilling completed, and that'll show me all the assays that were released this week. So there were 22 ASX Resource companies with assays released and 22 projects. And we can scroll down. We can see what regions and countries that happened in. Murchison was the main one with assays released. But here we can see quite a few. If we scroll down, we can see all the releases this week. Lots in the Eastern Goldfield and Queensland as well. But we can see by commodity, by code, the date of the release, its drilling completed is the activity, the project name, the project area region, the current market cap, the grade, the intersect, the depth, the grams per tonne per metre or the percentage per metre, the overview of the drilling results. Now this is by grade, and we can also scroll down and see the same information but by best intersect. So again, we see the ASX code, the commodity, the date, drilling activity or project activity, name, region, current market cap, and the overview of the drilling results. So as you can see, quite a lot of information. And one other thing we can do here is we can, anywhere in the system, you can filter on. So we'll just filter on gold results, and we'll scroll back up and just look at the number of gold assays released for the week. And there was 14 released with ASX codes and projects for gold. And we can scroll down again and see, you know, what regions they were in and the details of the drilling. So we can see EMC had the best grade result, and they're based in the Murchison region. Just on the Murchison region too, later in the week, I'll be releasing an article on the Murchison, and that'll be based on the history, all the projects, commodities and companies within the region. And it's a tier 1 jurisdiction, and you know, it's got proven production projects and a lot of projects also in advanced stages in studies, etc. But that'll be released later in the week, and look forward to your feedback on that. And we'll start to do that across the board, where we do articles on project regions, on commodities, etc., to give investors some insights on regions and commodities. So again, that was by grade, and we can scroll down and see by best intersect. So code PRU had the best gold intersect for the week with 114 meters at 3.72 grams per tonne at a depth of 284 meters, which equates to 424.08 grams per tonne per metre. So that's an extraordinary result, and obviously one of the best results for the week. So that's how you can use MakCorp as far as looking at projects. It's just some of the ways. There's lots of different filters that you can filter on, but that gives you some insight to drilling and project activity for week ending the 6th of December. Now we'll look at, and that obviously includes any JORC updates, any study updates, etc. as well. Now we'll look at the capital raises for the week. So we'll click on this one. There were 39 capital raises with 35 ASX companies involved in those raises. There was 443 million plus raised, with an average raise of just over 11 million. But we can scroll down, we can see the commodity was gold was the big one as far as the commodity with capital raise. And then you can see the breakdown of CRR types or capital raise types. Once we scroll down here a little bit and we sort this one by CR amount from highest to lowest, and we can see that code SPR, Spartan, is the highest. They raised $220 million, quite a lot of money in difficult times. And you can see there's some other good raises as well. LRV, Lovetto at 30 million, 29M, 26 million, etc. So some big raises there. So that finalises the podcast for week ending 6th of December 2024. Actually, before we go, I just want to touch on gallium, which I mentioned during the podcast. As I mentioned, the 11 companies are focused on gallium. But if we look at, let's move this, and we look at gallium, there are actually 33 ASX Resource companies with 35 projects that have gallium in the project. So it'll be interesting to see if they start to put some focus on that gallium. As mentioned, there's 11 focused on gallium at the moment out of those 33 companies. And there are 30 active projects, but it doesn't mean gallium is the focus. That it could be the byproduct of the project, you know, with gold, lithium and other projects that may have different commodities within it. So that just gives you some insight to what potentially can happen with gallium over the next 4 to 12 weeks, as we've seen with Antimony. You know, that grew from around 7 companies and projects focused on Antimony to now over 40. So again, interesting times for gallium, germanium and other commodities that have an export ban with China. One of the main uses, much like Antimony with gallium, is the military. So huge demand for different purposes for Antimony and gallium with and germanium with the military. All right, that now concludes the MakCorp Weekly Podcast for week ending the 6th of December 2024. Thanks for listening. If there's anything else you'd like me to discuss in our weekly podcast, please email me at steve@makcorp, makcorp.net.au. And thanks again for listening.